Greetings on the M-Tip podcast, making the impossible possible. We hear and glean from those who are making the impossible possible. In this episode, Principal Carla Graves joins us from North Park Community School in Buffalo, New York. What really qualifies Principal Graves to speak? 19 years of well-ornamented educational leadership experience, 4 certifications, 2 master's degrees in differentiated instruction and educational leadership. She has served in traditional public and charter schools as math teacher, dean of students, director of special education, assistant principal, supervisor of the Office of School Leadership at the district level, managing school improvement grants and state reporting, in her current role as principal. The M-Tip podcast is hyper-focused on impact, not mere evidence. Last year, Principal Graves led the North Park Community School to obtain results that surpassed both state and district proficiency results. In English language arts, third graders were impressively ahead of the state and district. However, fifth graders were 8 percentage points ahead of New York State and 39 percentage points ahead of the district. While sixth grade math proficiency was on par with New York State, on every other tested grade, math proficiency results exceeded both the district and the state. Third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and then fifth grade science exceeded the New York State proficiency average by 14 percentage points, while exceeding the district average by 39 percentage points. Help me welcome Principal Carla Graves.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yes. I'm equally excited to have you here because of what we're getting ready to talk about today. But before we dive in, is there anything I've missed that you would like to share?
I think something between the lines of all of those positions are just the joy that it brought and what it has prepared me for what I'm doing now.
And not to even forget what makes us who we are, right? Because we're not just a work. We're not just what we do every single day. We have such a support network when we leave the workplace, right? And so we're
Absolutely.
thankful for that network as well.
Yes, definitely. It couldn't be possible without that.
That's right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive on in. When we're looking at vision, leadership, and school culture, how do you define student success at North Park beyond state test scores?
I think it it's the feeling that you get when you come to school
Yeah.
as a staff member. I like coming to school. It's the joy that it brings. It's the feeling of being home, the comfort. You want the kids to feel that because if you're comfortable, you're ready to learn. If you're comfortable, you know that somebody there values you. And if you don't feel valued and you don't feel important, then the work is going to feel a lot harder than it could be. And I think that that's something that's not always able to be measured in a data point, but it's able to be measured when you come into our building and you see the classrooms and they're vibrant and filled with kids just engaging with each other and their teachers. And when they come in the morning, just really excited to be there.
Hmm. I would agree. And also, you have many data points because we don't have empty seats when we walk into classrooms. The kiddos are coming to school, they are walkers, they are taking the bus. And yes, parents are bringing them to school, but they want to come. They're not like, Mommy, I don't want to go. They want to get there, and that's
Exactly.
your engagement factor, right?
Hmm. Yes. We want to be there. They want to be here with
Right.
us. So that's great.
Yes, yes. So then let's talk about now they're there, they're in the seat. How do you build a culture of high expectations and shared responsibility? Because this is not just coming from you as the lead learner, right? There's a shared responsibility. So, how do you build that culture?
I think it's really important to make sure that everybody understands the role that they have in the big picture. Not only are they coming to educate our students, but we really want to make sure that it's not always my assistant principal or I that people have to come to for everything. So we have a first responders list where they can go to if they need help with OneNote or if they need help with navigating a certain learning app. We have a leader or a go-to person that is not the assistant principal or myself listed on this that they can go to. So it really alleviates how much we're needed for some of those minor details, but they're really important. And those staff members who have that leadership role in those different areas, I think that it helps them to have more value or feel more value. And I always say too that we're the model. So don't ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And I think people notice, we're in lunch duty every day. I'm helping the 5-year-olds to open their milks. There's garbage on the floor in the hallway. I'm picking it up because we're part of a community and that's what we're trying to teach to our children. So they're watching whether you
Right.
think that they are or not. And I think that the adults are in the building too. So just making sure that you are that model of what you're expecting others to be.
Mhm. It's important that you share about being the model, right? Because when I think about the administrative relationship, you know, I'm thinking about how in so many different places you have the assistant principal who perhaps is not an instructional leader because they're not given or afforded that opportunity. They are just in the cafeteria or they're doing the bus duty and they're doing those facilitative organizational pieces, managerial pieces. But when do you as the leader, as the lead learner, model even for your assistant principal so they become an instructional leader? Talk to us just a bit about what that looks like in your building.
Sure. I value my assistant principal so much. I throw ideas off of her. I mean, she really she is valued as an instructional leader. I think it's important for everybody else to see that assistant principal in the same way. Um, we meet every single morning and we go through our day. We have a tracking tool of who we're going to see that week, what classrooms we really want to hone in on. We speak about what the data looks like. There are certain data meetings that that person is charged with leading. So we talk about what's going to go on the agenda, and then they help to facilitate those meetings. And they really are a person that the teachers are going to and relying on for that expertise. And we really try to make sure that they're always getting the same response, no matter who they're coming to. And that really comes from her and I always trying to be on the same page and talking about anything before we make a decision. We talk to each other. Of course, there's basic decisions that you can make without leaning on each other. But we really, anytime I do something like right now is budget season or
Yes.
when we're talking about SEP. And of course, that's a collaborative piece, but it's that assistant principal and I that are talking about it first and leading that person of just see, this is why we made this decision and this is how you can support it. Here's the data that you need. All of our data is shared, all of our documents are shared. Just we really try to be that one voice, one team.
That's awesome. I just wanted to clarify because our audience is from multiple states, and so when you reference ASAP, it's your school comprehensive education plan, just the school improvement plan, so to
Yes.
say, correct?
It drives what your goals are for the school based on data, and it's really, really important that it's based on data and it's accurate and it captures the picture, and it's that driving force for us that following school year.
So it doesn't collect dust.
No, we visit it often.
We can chuckle, right?
Yes, yes, it
So
senses us.
so you're talking about your teachers, and I view teachers as leaders, right? Like they're running the show. And so how do teachers collaborate through grade level planning or planning in general, PLCs, right? However you reference them, to strengthen instruction.
Right. We really are a learning community. Our motto at North Park is together. everything is done in collaboration. We do not work in silos. We have a lot of different meetings that are in place, and they all serve a different purpose while serving the same purpose to drive our
Okay.
students' instruction and raise their academics and social emotional goals. So we, of course, do a grade level meeting where the entire team is present. Multiple grade levels at a time. And that's where we really look at some of our RTI groupings, our students in the right group for where they're at right now, using data points, delivering all of those initiatives that are different topics from the district that are really important to drive home and to instruct them on, and give them information about. And that's a great opportunity to make sure that the whole team is there getting that same information and being able to collaborate with each other. The other meeting that we find very, very valuable is our vertical meetings. So that is
Okay.
when there are students from, our teachers from kindergarten all the way up, because we're departmentalized and there's only 2 classes per grade. So, you don't have another, if you're teaching math, you don't have another teacher at your grade level that you can really talk to about strategies and co-planning. Of course, we do have an ICT teacher. But it's not someone in another classroom delivering that same instruction. So we find this time invaluable that the kindergarten teacher can talk to the second grade teacher and say, "Hey, I'm really working on this fluency. Or do you have any strategies that you've used, for students that might have needed it?" Or sharing those strategies, looking at that data, unpacking the standards. So the
Mhm.
standard, that the kids might be tested on in third grade for the first time when they take the New York State assessment, it's not the first time that they've learned some of those skills and those standards. So it's really, really important for the K-1-2 teachers to see the value in their instruction and that it is going to come out on that third grade assessment. We look at trends. Are there certain things that kids are struggling on in any subject area? One that we notice is understanding vocabulary, and that is part of our comprehensive plan, is giving more instruction intentionally on vocabulary and building the student's understanding. You could come out and ask a student, what does this word mean? But when you ask what it means within a certain context,
Yes.
it's different, and it could vary in that meaning. So when a student sees that kind of question in first grade when they're 6 or 7 years old, then they're they're used to it as they
Right.
get to older grade levels. And those are the types of conversations that we have in vertical. Um, we also do data meetings. It's a little bit more intimate. It's just the grade level team, administration, and then our somebody from student support, typically our
Okay.
psychologist. This is when, if there's bit meetings, if there's safety plans to go over, we do that. But then we also really focus on the academics. We look at the
Okay.
benchmark assessments. We break them down. We take them every 6 weeks. So we look at the standards that were tested. We talk about the data. Should we address this data in small group? Should we do a whole group reteach because there's such a high need? Is this something that's going to be done in RTI? And then each one of those teachers has a responsibility when they leave of what to do with that data. And it really is a team effort because, again, even if we're departmentalized, our ELA teacher is still delivering instruction for math because as a
Okay.
childhood teacher, you are certified in all subjects. So
Right.
you are still delivering that instruction. And that time during our data meetings really helps to support what you're responsible for teaching and what students you'll have. And then it's really important. I think it helps to build relationships and trust with teachers, but we call them 3C meetings. They're
Okay.
collaborative coaching conversations. We divide and conquer. The assistant principal and I, we each have a set of staff members that we have equally divided. So again, that assistant principal having responsibility of being an instructional leader. So we have a notebook, and when we meet with the teachers, they know what the topic is that's coming for that cycle. They always get feedback when we've been in their classrooms for walkthroughs when,
Okay.
this is where they put their lesson plans. So we do feedback on that every time. But then we also focus on different topics that are current. Parent teacher conferences are coming up. Did you do your sign up sheet? Do you have your data to share? Do you have any parents that you need more support with? Or what does your benchmark assessment look like? Well, why did you ask this standard 3 times and this standard only twice? So different questions like that, so that they see the value in what they're doing and that we notice um, the work that they're doing. And then it gives them the opportunity to, of course, like if they have any needs or they have any questions. Um, and it helps to build that bridge between administration and staff too.
That was a wealth of insight into what's happening at North Park. And I'm hearing about the engagement of the families through family meetings. How often are you having those meetings?
So we do parent conferences twice a year, and that is more of a formal time. We do a sign up. Our goal is always 100%. Of
Okay.
course, we have safety nets in place for families that might be more difficult to get a hold of, or the time doesn't work for them.
Right.
But we do a mixture of vertical or in person options, especially for that two parent working household. It's hard to
Yes.
get into school, so we make sure that they can at least touch base with us. We always do a snapshot for them of
Okay.
their child. So it's more than just, just what's on the report card. It's specifics of these are the challenges your child might be having. This is where they're excelling. We talk about their social emotional growth.
Okay.
If we have any resources for them, we talk about that. But that is not the only time that we talk to parents. We are in constant communication with parents all the time. We
Yes.
use a free app called Class Dojo,
Okay.
where they're sending monthly newsletters home. What are we learning this month? Don't forget about this. That's coming up. Every week they're at least sharing to Dojo where they can talk immediately to a parent with a private message or posting reminders or celebrations, pictures of what the students are doing in school. It helps to bring up. I know I'm a parent and I ask my kids, "What did you do in school?" or "How was school?" Good, but that seeing the picture of what they did, you
It
can
tells
bring
a
it.
story.
Oh, yes, I
Yes.
I saw
It
that you
tells a
were
story.
using beakers to measure in science. Tell me about that. What did you do? And then we also do together events. So we once a
Okay.
quarter, the grade level teams are charged with inviting a parent representative or family representative in, one per kid. Of course, if they wanted to bring more, they could, but we ask for one person to come and they participate in some kind of event that is tied to our learning standards, or
Okay.
tied to our anti-bias topic for that month. So they'll come in and they'll participate in an activity where the kids, and the family member with them, they do something that it's fun, it's learning, it's engaging, and then it also helps to build that community where families can talk to other families and they can get to know who's in their students' class. And that happens 4 times a year. So parents, they're really comfortable coming into school,
Right. Right.
and making sure that they're really part of their students' academics.
Right. So, establishing two-way communication versus just that one way. The school is pumping out information constantly, but not establishing the two-way. You've established that uh, beyond the virtual means that's available, just by bringing the families in, giving them the options, and it shows in how they're engaging with the school, right? And so I wanted to jump back into your benchmarking, because you mentioned that every 6 weeks you were benchmarking, right? And there's this culture of examining data, which is okay, we have it. That's your so what? And then you have to get into your now what. And I want to hear more about the now what that's been happening to shift outcomes for students at North
Right.
Park.
So we take that data from our benchmark assessment. Now the benchmark assessment it is strategically created. It is created to
Okay.
look like a New York State assessment. It is created to make sure that the question framing is very similar for students. So when they take the assessment, they are in a testing environment that they would be for New York State. We try to make everything be as similar as possible so that they are comfortable and they are ready for the real thing. But then we take these standards, they're standards that they have just tested in the last 6 weeks. We assess the students and then we come together typically in those data meetings and then the 3C meetings. And we look at unpacking the standards of, okay, so, looking at a specific student, This is how they performed. Are they in the right RTI group? Okay, they're in the right RTI group. Yes, but they're struggling on this specific standard, NF2. I'm just, making it up. Well, then
Right.
what are we going to do for that student? If overall they're in the right RTI group, when are they going to get this standard reteach so that we can fill
Right.
that gap? And a lot of
Right.
times that might come from small group instruction. Making sure that just because when you're done teaching that core standard so you can stay on pace, you also need to make sure that you're pulling small group based on past skills. Or
Okay.
is it that 70% of the students are also struggling on NF2? Well, now we need to buffer in a reteach day for the whole group because something's missing. And we need to make sure, is it the way that we taught it? Is it something in the curriculum that's a miss? How does it line up with the way that New York State is going to ask it? How does it line up with what our end goal is? So all of those conversations, that it's not black and white. It's not always just that that's the answer. And it really comes from us having that dialogue in that data meeting. And really looking at how are we going to make sure that every single one of these kids are challenged, because not only are we looking at students who need to fill the gaps, we're looking at students who are maybe exceeding grade level expectations. Well, we need to make sure that they're challenged too, because going back to the first question of making sure kids enjoy coming to school, they don't want to come to school if they're bored. So how are we going to make sure that they're constantly being pushed?
And that's a point for me, um, that I think about often, right? So we teach often to the middle, or we teach often to at core now for those who need the extra, right? Just the extra. But then what are we doing for those who are babies who understand it, who get it, and need to be, say, accelerated?
Right,
Or have what are we doing? We don't want them to be bored, right? And we don't want them to just sit and get. That's not working.
right.
And so I hear these meaningful conversations that are taking place in your PLCs as you're working together with teachers. It's a collaborative discussion, right? That's making it happen. This doesn't happen everywhere though. And it's getting the results at your school. And so talk to us a little bit about now district expectations, right? What district expectations most influence your instructional priorities at the school?
I think one of the biggest expectations that we have as administrators is doing walkthroughs.
Okay.
Um, it helps to stay intentional, of, what are the main things that we wanna look at when we go into a classroom. Of course, every teacher differentiated is working on something else too that we talk about in their 3C meeting, because just the way that we have to differentiate for kids, we have to differentiate for teachers.
Yes.
Um, but that walkthrough tool really helps us to make sure that we are getting into classrooms, and it helps to hold my assistant principal and I accountable, um, to ourselves and with each other. And we look at this walkthrough tracker and we say, you know what, we haven't done an intentional walkthrough in this second grade classroom in 3 weeks. One of us we have to get in there this week. So we code. There's teachers that might be newer, teachers that are struggling that we visit a little bit more frequently, just
Right.
to give them that extra boost in coaching. Um, it just, it makes the kids see that we're part of their classroom and we're part of their community too. It's not weird that we're coming in their room. But I do think that that is one of the district initiatives for administrators that is really, really important. We need to be in the classrooms. I mean, we tease that like our office is not our office in the four walls. Our office is on our cart,
That's
so
right.
that we can constantly be in the hallways and visible and walking around. And opportunities present themselves just organically, if you're around. Conversation with a student who might have a need for an extra hug or a conversation while they're visiting the restroom, or overhearing a really great conversation between a teacher and a student, and then being able to say that, wow,
Right.
that was meaningful, that you
Right.
you know let that student unpack that comment, and you didn't just move on. And then they know, like, oh, that was valuable. I should keep on doing that
Right.
intentionally. I should do that again.
Yeah, the visibility helps, right? And I'd like to call it meaningful visibility, because there's visibility where you're just kind of walking through, passing by. Yeah, I saw my principal, but then there's the meaningful one, right? Where you create those moments that are meaningful, and folks don't forget them,
Right.
right? Because you actually care about what's happening in your building,
Right.
right? And so how does you're there, you're visible. How does staff attendance impact instructional quality and student learning?
It is a driving force. If a textbook and a learning app could teach kids, none of us would be in a position that we're in now. Um, Aside from the teacher being valuable in delivering that quality instruction, they are someone that our children depend on seeing. And our children love their teachers. We want them to love their teachers. Staff attendance is really important. I think, again, from modeling, it's important for them to see me at work. It's important for them to see my assistant principal at work. We both have very good attendance ourselves. We want to be there. Um, and I think having that relationship with the staff where it's that balance of that you are expected to be here, but we also understand that, life happens, and being supportive
Yes.
when those things happen. And having that balance of, being support while also like think twice about, if you're just going to take off because our kids need you and we need you and we're here. And I think it goes with building that culture again and the relationships. I always say that I'm so fortunate that we have the staff that we have. They work really, really hard. We try to make sure that they know that what they do does not go unnoticed. That it's important for them to feel important and valuable when they come to work because they really are.
How are you supported in your position and in your role as a leader? And what would you desire to have more of so that you could be more effective in your role as a leader?
I think, I'm very fortunate to be supported within the building itself. I have teachers that I go to for different things that are they're my lead teachers, and I go to them and I ask them for advice
Yes.
or what do you think about this data? Like it just for a lot of different things. Or, we're looking at next year's handbook. Do you think that we should alter um XYZ in there and going to having committees, going to people for schedules, and we do a leadership team meeting every other Tuesday morning. And I really do seek their input because they're they're the ones that are there in the classrooms. They're the ones that see it from the other side. So it is really important, and I lean on them. I really lean on my assistant principal. I know that I can count on her for anything. Um, and that is invaluable. The model for the district is really great the way that they have associate superintendents that are split up into cohorts. So it's not, one person to go to for all of these schools. We're the second largest district in New York State. So to have that cohort and that person that you can go to talk to, and when they come to visit the building and when they're there, they are present and they are intentional. And getting that feedback, whether it's something to improve on or something that's going well, we're even in the position that we're in, we it's invaluable. I think also, if there's never enough time. But if there was more time, I think there's always a lot of learning that can happen from our peers and our colleagues. And I really value having that opportunity to be able to work with my colleagues, with fellow principals at other schools, which we get at principal meetings. Um, and if there was more time for that, but again, there's not enough time and we can't be out of our buildings, but just there's I learn a lot from my fellow principals. So
Yeah.
just that if there was more of anything, that would be something I'd love more of, but there it's at least started.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And, I also thought about as we begin to bring our time together, home, at every level of educational leadership, the school, the district, the state level, the one thing that remains consistent in my mind and heart is this: when I step into this classroom, is it good enough for my DJ? Is it engaging enough for my Amber? Would my Morgan thrive in this space? What do you do when you walk into spaces you know are not good enough for your babies?
So I try to live by the motto, water the grass that's in your lawn. However, so first I'll start with first I try to, if it is not on par with our expectations, approaching it with coaching, approaching it with support, approaching it with modeling.
Yes.
We have gone so far as um, administration has gone in and taught a lesson to model what another way to deliver that instruction would be, because we are
Wow.
both teachers first.
That's right.
I was a middle school math teacher before I was anything else. So I'm a teacher. Um,
Yes.
and or looking for some, if there's, we always have someone that does something really well, and that's kind of like they have a knack for something, whether it's engagement or management or relationships or capturing the student's attention, so or the way that they structure workshop models. So what I mean with that is finding where someone is strong and then allowing that person who maybe that's not where they are strong to go and observe.
Yes.
When I talk about together in community, it really is that it I feel like the majority of our staff, they find that their role is just as important as mine, with that they have a responsibility to make sure that their peers are at the same level that they
That's
are.
right. That's right.
And
Mhm.
and you're only as strong as your weakest link.
That's right.
So we really try. They do a great job at making sure that they're modeling what the lesson looks like, and then we give them time without administration, because it is not evaluative, to debrief. And for that teacher who might be struggling to have somebody to go to, um, if someone is new to North Park, we have a mentorship program. So, of course, the district provides mentors for new teachers, but we might have a teacher who's only a 5-year veteran mentoring a teacher who's a 25-year veteran. Because when you come to North Park, we want to make sure that you understand our expectations.
Right.
And to have somebody to be able to go to that might not be someone that you're nervous to go to. They're
Yeah.
your colleague and they're your peer. So that is our 98% of approach that works. For that minute number that it might not be effective, then there's different conversations where, um, if I can't coach you up, then it's going to be, this is the expectation and this is what I need to see at this time. Um, that's very few and far between. I really
Oh,
do
yes.
believe that people that get into education, they're in it for so much intrinsic motivation. They love the
Yes.
kids, they love what they do. If what they're doing is not very effective, they want it to be.
Right.
So they're looking for ways for it to be effective. So we just try to make sure that we're giving those tools to them that are tangible. Um,
Right.
and that, I think a lot of that does come from the modeling and just making sure that they can see what we want. They can
Right.
see what proficient looks like.
You are in this wholeheartedly. And I appreciate you for joining us today and for sharing so candidly with our audience. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close this episode today?
I think that our role, no matter what role you're in education, what position you bring to the table, that no matter what that is, it's important. And to remember that we're doing this for our future. It's I always say that if we of course want children to be proficient, but we want them to be ready to be community members. We want them to be good people. Of course, we want them to be proficient, but at the end of the day, we also want them to be ready to build our future.
Wow. Well, I thank you. Principal Carla Graves works together with her school community to make the impossible possible for all students and for all staff. She is a no-nonsense leader who refuses to accept the status quo. Her vision for student success is one that is shared across and throughout the North Park Community School family. We thank you today, Principal Graves. And we thank our audience for joining the MTIP podcast today.
Thank you for having me.